Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live post-game show after what could only be considered I guess insane is not a bad word for this game four between the Warriors and the Blazers. I don't even know. I was going to grab video clips to break down with you guys tonight, and quite honestly, like there was nothing to grab. It was basically some sort of a pickup game for 53 minutes. And I guess part of the problem, it felt like, was the refereeing. Now, I wouldn't want to referee in this game either, because it was just, you had this interesting sort of desperation by the Blazers. They're clearly not as talented as the Warriors. So what they need to do is spread the floor as much as they can and let what they have talent in just attack, which would be Lillard, McCollum, and you got Crabbe, and you got Henderson. And those are the guys who can create something off the dribble on the perimeter, and then hope that Plumlee and Aminu and those guys can tip out the balls, grab the loose balls, and make it a little bit, muck up the game a little bit. And as a result, you put them in position for the referees to have a very difficult time, refereeing this thing, because it was just a wide open game. I don't know if I saw more than like maybe 10 offensive plays ran by either team tonight. And so it was sort of frustrating to watch. I was enthralled without question by the individual exploits of both Lillard and Curry. They made shots that you couldn't make in horse, and yet they're doing it with guys who are all over them and getting paid millions of dollars to stop them. So, it's hard. Now, the referee, we can go back to that for a minute. Whenever Scott Foster is the head crew chief, or whatever you want to call him on these games, I can't help but, notice that they tend to be really poorly reffed. And I don't know if it's because from the top down, he just influences the other refs in some weird way. But it was a problem. I wrote down here's the thing. I think each team's fans would be really upset. And let me know on Twitter if you agree. But I have to imagine that everybody across the board is unhappy with how the game was reffed. And so that tells you something, at least. Usually it's maybe one team. So as a result, it might end up being kind of fair to some degree, where it balanced out. But there's a lot of screens called that I felt didn't have a lot of contact on both sides of the ball that were strange, and everybody was throwing up their hands on those, both on-ball and off-ball screens. There were some missed calls at the rim, so like Livingston getting tossed was a really interesting thing. And I think it was a culmination of, Livingston is a very mild-mannered, doesn't ever really express too much displeasure with the refereeing. And so it was a little shocking to me that he got thrown. So you see the shot that he took, and he gets hit on the head. It's completely blatant in real time, in a replay, however you want to see it. But I have no question he was bubbling over from other calls and the way the game had been reffed up until that point at the end of the second quarter. Without question, they were all frustrated, and that's what happens when the refereeing gets loose. So, and he lost his SHIT without question. He deserved that second tee. After you go after the ref and get it, you got to walk away. He did not. He continued to yell like that. And so, I don't think Foster had much else to do besides toss him. And, of course, that became a whole problem because they didn't want to play Steph heavy minutes. They didn't have to. And all of a sudden, they had to. But it definitely allowed us to have an amazing performance. I'm not sure how we're going to do this breakdown, but there's going to have to be ample time devoted towards just the shot making. I'm not even sure what you break down. You sort of talk about the step back, whatever dribble move they did, because it was not much action on the offense. I'll tell you that. There was, both teams. The Warriors did run every once in a while on a break in the action. They would call the play. They would run something, and sort of same for the Blazers. But so much is spread, pick and roll. Try and, get yourself to the basket and then either shoot or kick. I'm a little bit worried, by the way, that this could be the future of basketball, because if it's like this, I'm not so sure I would like to watch the whole game like this. We didn't have a whole lot of sort of multiple passes, ball moving, off-ball screens, cutting. Like, it didn't have that feel. It had a lot of no shot selection at all on, I would say, I don't know, half the shots taken. And the thing with the Blazers is because they're less talented across the board, they kind of have to do that. Damian, you need to take at least 10 threes. I don't care how you get them, you got to take them. And same with CJ. And so that's kind of how they're playing. Because remember, if you miss, even if it's a wild shot, you do have a chance at the offensive rebound, because if it's a long shot, it tends to go long. And the offense has a slight, not an advantage, but they have an extra chance to get it. And then the big advantage is when you get the three off of the offensive rebound. And I feel like we saw a few of those. Aminu was able to get open on, I think, a few of those are loose ball stuff where all of a sudden the defense isn't set. So wild game, insanity. Let's go to some questions and see what we have. There weren't too many when I checked a minute ago, but let's go to my thing where I can share the screen. But first, let me get that screen set up with the right tab. And, let's move this out of the way. Live TV, everybody. Present to everyone. Okay, so here we go. We have our questions blown out. Looks like we have a few here. I think I found some that were from the last live show we didn't get to, so I figured, you know what? Let's answer those. Let's see here. Well, we go back to here on May 6th. Anthony Gonzalez asks, who do you think is the best coach to better OKC's late game struggles? I don't know, because I know for a fact that Billy Donovan is a very smart coach, knows what he's talking about. So if they're self-destructing, it could very well be because they're not listening to the coach. And that's the case. It might be that they can't find any coach that would ever do that, that could help them. So I don't know. Naso Papas asks, never understood how players like Robertson are complete non-shooters. I'm sure he puts in the work and time. Is it mental? It's a great question. And I do believe that it is a lot of it's mental. And if you're told your shot isn't good and you're going up, whatever, you kind of like artists when every little young kid is a good artist, right? And at some point, some people are good artists and other people aren't. And I truly feel like it's like they were told they weren't at an earlier age. However, there's no question Robertson has some mechanical issues with his shot, because I'm sure he shoots a lot of threes and like a lot of shots to get better at it. But when you have bad mechanics, you're just practicing to miss. So I promise I got to go frame by frame, try and find some good HD, maybe a close-up if I can find it in his shot, to see what's going on there, because there's got to be something off with that. Let's see here. Harash Sarkissian asks, how pissed are you at Russ if you're KD and you see him year after year play inefficient and low IQ ball, costing him against good teams? I'm not sold that KD is really in love with Russ like they talk about it, like they're great friends. I really feel like that does wear on him, and we'll see what happens in this playoffs, because if they don't make it out of this round, I wonder if KD is going to stay. Let's see here. Natsu also asks, do you mind ball-dominant guards such as CP3, Nash, and Russ? Oh, this question I might have already answered before. But yeah, certainly CP3 and Nash, I don't consider ball dominant, because they didn't just sort of hammer the ball. And Russ is different because he over dribbles and he shoots a lot more than those guys did without passing. So that's the big difference. Max asks, Durant to Boston or maybe teaming up with Harden in Houston? Thoughts? I don't think he's going either there. I'd imagine if he leaves, he's going to go to a much better situation. So either he leaves to go to Oklahoma to Golden State, or they do some sort of weird sign and trade to the Clippers, or he stays. Skinny asks, Steph reportedly won the MVP, so I'm curious, based on what criteria would you choose? Scoring, impact on team, all-around play? Well, you know what? I'm going to stop screen sharing for a minute, because I want to talk about Steph being the MVP, because I think that's already a done deal. They reported it, Wojbomb, earlier today. Steph Curry had arguably the greatest offensive season we've ever seen, ever. And listen, I grew up in Chicago. I went to every Michael Jordan game. And he was still a different kind of dominant, but we've never seen a player. I think he averaged 30 a game. He didn't even play 30 minutes a game. And that's how dominant he was. And that's the kind of effect he had the second he crosses half court. We've never seen a guy do that before who can dribble and shoot like that. So without question, he deserved to be the MVP simply for changing the game. I mean, breaking the all-time record in threes, for being as efficient as he is. He also was a passer. He did facilitate when he had to, and when he could. And we saw some amazing dimes tonight as well. So there was no question he had, arguably the greatest season of all time offensively. And then that I've already done a breakdown on how good he is defensively. And I know that people still don't want to believe me or accept what they see. So I just offered to him, I said, listen, if you think that I'm just cherry picking plays that showed how good he was on D, just give me a number. Let me know how many possessions you'd like me to provide for you. 75, 100, 120. You let me know, and I will provide them to show you that it's not a fluke. All right, let's go back to our questions because I think we have a few more. These are good. So we have these are okay. So we got some more ones. Great. So don't forget, use the hashtag BBallShow so you pop up here and I can ask Wade or DeRozan. I suppose you mean like this year right now. Either way, I'm taking Wade. And I think DeRozan showed us why I haven't really liked him much. The way he plays. It's just he takes terrible shots. He's not really good enough to take and make some of the shots that he does practice routinely, and it's frustrating. My buddy Albert asks, can you make a shoe stink on the West Coast? I can. I guess you are in. Good to hear from you, Albert. I can make a shoe stink. The Pope is Catholic, and here we are. Alfredo asks, did you know that the Warriors never had a player or coach ejected from a game this season? I did not know that, but that made sense. I mean, Kerr is known to get a T or two, but I don't think he'd ever rise to the level of getting ejected, and certainly neither would Luke Walton. Yeah, I mean, listen, they have. Actually, I guess I would be surprised if Draymond hadn't gotten ejected just because he tends to lose his SHIT sometimes. But the white Darius Miles, okay, you're giving me the hashtag with no question. Kostas Kokalides asks, who's the actual best defender, Leonard or Draymond? I think it's Draymond that has the most impact overall. You know what? I think I might agree with you. I'm a really big Kawhi Leonard fan. I think he's terrific all around. But Draymond is he's just a different kind of beast. He's probably even longer than Kawhi is, and maybe a little taller. So I'm going with Draymond, believe it or not, even though I can get behind Leonard winning the Defensive Player of the Year. Alfredo Rodriguez asks again, Blazers are the only team to draw player ejections on Golden State Warriors. How are they able to do it? Wait. I don't know. I mean, listen, the Blazers can drive you crazy, but the referees are the ones who are guilty in this game. Crossing over hose. Was Steph's performance better than MJ's flu game? That's interesting. MJ was really struggling. He could barely stand up, right? Scotty's helping him off the court. I have to remember how many points he scored in that game. It was probably close to what Steph did. And I also think that MJ wasn't as efficient as Steph was. I got to check, although Steph didn't start out shooting very well at all. But that's a really great question, and perhaps something I should favorite as a potential breakdown. Kostas asks us, what do you think about Vogel getting fired? He was a major reason for the Pacers' achievements since he got there. I think that not only was I think it was stupid that Vogel got fired, I thought that Larry Bird's press conference was even dumber because he really offered no insight into what was happening and what his decision was, aside from the fact that, in his career, he had encountered that, after 3 or 4 years, the coach gets tuned out. And the really dumb thing is that over the 5 years he was there, they didn't have anybody who played for him for 3 years except for maybe Paul George. And I'm pretty sure that Paul George was behind him. Larry wanted some more offense, but look at that team, and you had really weird fits. You didn't really have a good offensive team. They were really solid defensively, and they were well coached overall and knew how to play with purpose. So it was mystifying that Vogel gets fired, and then there are other coaches who still have a job. Similar to what happened with Yeager in Memphis. Although it's pretty clear to me, you don't ask for permission to speak to teams 2 or 3 years in a row without having a job locked down, which he clearly did with the Sacramento Kings, which then what makes you wonder if there was tampering, because clearly they must have sort of said something to him pretty clearly before he went to ask for permission from Memphis. Maybe nobody cares about that, but that is something interesting to me. But I just think it was ridiculous. I think Vogel is a great coach. And I think he's one of those guys that will get another job soon enough. And I just think that Larry he threw him under the bus. He was talking about how he was begging for his job on the phone. He called him on the phone. He didn't even meet with him in person. Just I don't know. It was very poorly done. If you're a boss out there, take notes on what Larry Bird did and don't do that. All right, let's go back to our questions. A lot of good ones here. Naso asks, why do teams not run offense at end of games? Opponents' familiarity with sets, more focused defense, switching screens. Well, yes to all of those things, And also, I think the teams are worried they're not going to get the guy they want shooting. They want their star to get the shot, and if you start passing the ball around, you either can make a turnover or he might not be able to get the shot you want. I still think it's nonsense because it's, again, the harder shot. So run something. Create a shot as a team, and if you can't do that, then you don't deserve to win. Why didn't the Blazers go 2 for 1? Uh-oh. Cole, I don't know which situation you're talking about because I didn't notice that they didn't go for 2 for 1. Are we talking about in regulation? I have to imagine it was probably because it just was, it was too close. They couldn't get it off in time, but I don't know. I'll have to check that out. So, let's see here. TWB asks, do you think that Danny Green is a top 5 player? Oh, no, sorry. Draymond Green is a top 5 player. Well, he's certainly top 10. I got to look at the list because what we're talking about, LeBron, Curry, who else is in that top 5? I have to look at it, but he's top 10 without question. And, maybe he's close if he isn't top 5. Okay. Woof asks, you would like 3,000 possessions of Steph defense, please. Okay. You realize that in a whole season, he probably doesn't have more than, 800. But okay. I'll see what I can do. Anshul Birla asks, how did Steph not lose his form on all those long threes? Where does he get the power? His sweep and sway look the same to me. Well, he has the benefit of having really beautiful mechanics that he's practiced and worked on over and over. And then he is tireless. Every day he probably shoots 500 shots a day after practice the same way. I've watched him do it several times now, and it's the same routine. And you got to be you have to have some sort of thing in your mind that allows you to be able to do that over and over again, and actually probably take pleasure in doing that. Because I don't think it's OCD. I think there's some sort of pleasure in the feeling of shooting a basketball that he has figured out and doesn't mind shooting that many times. But I just watched him, and he knows exactly what his body is doing because a lot of shooters don't know what they do. But he seems really hyper aware of what's happening with his body and knows how to find that every time. And that sheer force of will, sheer repetition, but clearly repetition of really good mechanics that he's developed. NBA foreign players asks, the Warriors had a few steals in OT. What did Portland do wrong on those? Well, I remember a couple were just like forcing it, going to their off. I think Lillard was going to his left hand. He had a guy all over him going into traffic. It just wasn't those were really rough, tough plays to make in the best of times, much less in OT of a game that's like make or break of your season with the game on the line. So they had a spacing issue a lot of times where other players could get in there and reach a little bit. As far as I remember, that's how that goes. Naso asks, did you catch the hammer counter for Barnes 3 at the end of the game? Clay has so much gravity coming off screens. Thoughts on Harrison Barnes? Oh, absolutely. Well, what I did was I vined it, and I should have said it was hammer because I vined and you got to try and find this if you didn't see it on Twitter. Steph Curry is looking for obviously the hammer cutter to the corner, but he is so smart and ahead of it that the other team knew this was happening. So the screener is the guy that's open. He throws the ball before Harrison Barnes even knows he's open. That's how amazing it is. So he's down on the baseline. He throws I think a one-handed pass, and he takes a little bit off of it so it floats just enough so Harrison Barnes can get back there and catch the ball. But he could read it ahead of time and know that he was going to be open so he could throw it. And really great to see Harrison Barnes knock that shot down because, man, has he been struggling. And, he's been getting open shots. He just can't knock them down. But he hit a few tonight, and it was great to see, and it was huge. Got them to the overtime. We got one more question so far in the queue before we go to our stats analysis here. Let's see here. Actually, got a few more. This is great. Everyone's coming in. A lot of people here tonight. Alex Adams. What's up, Alex? He says, I think Vogel was fired because the owners didn't like him. Oh, that's interesting. The owners didn't like him? What the hell do the owners think about? Like, why would they not like him? Was he too positive? That's really bizarre. I'd like to hear more about that if you have any information. And that's kind of cool. You're followed by Chris Kamen. All right. Evgeny Kvan asks, who is a bigger threat for the Warriors, the Spurs or the Cavs? I'm not liking how the Spurs are playing offense these days. We have a breakdown coming up in the morning. So I'm going to go with the Cavs, the way they're playing. And that said, I have to stress one thing about the Cavs is that, for as impressive as the Cavs have been in this last round against the Hawks were equally unimpressive with their defense. So I don't really know what the Cavs have. Are they really as crazy dominant as they appeared? Because, man, it looked as good as any team out there ever. Or was it like some real flaws in the way the Hawks were playing defense? I'm kind of leaning more toward that, but then again, they should have an easier time, or they should have a lot more ways to score, I feel like, against the Spurs or against the Warriors. So I'm thinking that, yeah, that's going to be a bigger test for them for sure. We got a couple more here. Let's share the screen. What else we have here? Dennis Malinka asks, what can you say about such a dominant performance by Steph after a long rest? I mean, there are no words. It's up there with MJ's flu game. Really, really impressive. He looked good. I mean, he didn't look like he was suffering at all from the knee. It was just simply a question of getting your legs back, getting your timing back in a real game, and that's what he did. We've seen that before. Like after he got that concussion in that one of those games against like Houston, I think, a couple of years ago, he missed a couple of bad shots, but then once he got warmed up and ready to go, he was just crazy good. Aduma asks, how big of a mistake was the Bulls getting rid of Thibodeau? A huge mistake, although, you know what, maybe they tuned him out. Maybe the front office told the players to tune him out. I don't know what happened there. But I think that they obviously, they didn't make the playoffs with almost the same team. So clearly it was a mistake. Cole Everett asks, end of regulation, 14 on shot clock, 35 game. Here we go. This is the 2-for-1. 14 on the shot clock with 35 seconds left in the game. Willard dribbles down, takes a deep to anyway. Sorry about that. Okay, well, so he dribbles it down. Oh, he dribbles the clock down and then takes a contested deep two anyway. Oh, man, I'm going to have to really check it out. But you're right. It sounds like it was a mistake. Was it a tie game at that point, or were they up? Because if they're up, they don't want to take a 2-for-1. And I'm trying to remember if they were in that setting or was it tied. So that's the only other question. It depends on the score. Anyhow, well, let's move on to you know what? We can share that same screen because I want to go through the quarter by quarter, our little patented way we go through the game here. So don't forget, if you go to stats.nba.com and you go to the box score, let me refresh this. Please tell me they have it ready to go. Usually they have it ready to go after a few minutes of the game. You go to the box score here. You can then go quarter by quarter by clicking this gear, which I think is going to be cool because we're going to see a tale of two games. The first quarter was all Blazers, and it was a great way for the Blazers to start. I mean, they were taking, I would say lousy shots, if I don't mind saying so myself. Let me share this with everybody. So here is the, I hope you can read this if it's not too small. Maybe I can boost the size one more. Okay, how's that? Is that any better? Okay, so in the first quarter, though, let's see who was doing the damage for Portland, because this is the big deal. We had 10 points from Lillard, 2 for 6 from 3. It seemed like he was even better than that, and he was off on his free throws a little bit. But they were hammering him from away from 3. You know what? It's weird. They only had 4 for 11. Let's see. After 1, what was the score? 26-18. Okay. Well, it seemed like it was even worse. That must be why the Warriors were able to come back a little bit more. 7 points by McCollum, who was also on fire from the field, hitting some good shots. Out of their let's see here, out of their 9 field goals, only 3 were assisted. So there was a lot of sort of ISO stuff and creating on their own. But it was working, and that's the only way they have to beat them is they have to muck it up. They have to try and force shots, get them up, try and get the defense a little bit out of sorts in a hurry. Meanwhile, in the first quarter, on the other side, let's see, the Blazers. I mean, the Warriors only scored 18 points. Definitely a low point for them in this game. And if you see here, nobody had more than 4 points. Steph Curry had 4, and he only played, the last 6 minutes. He didn't start. He came in the last 6 minutes of the quarter. And then Klay Thompson really struggled, looked terrible in the beginning, could not find a shot that was going to go down for him. And I thought he took some terrible shots as well, just for the sake of taking shots. Let's move to the second quarter and see who's doing well then. All right, let's see here. So in the second quarter, if we go up here, it was 41-39. So both teams started going. This is when it became a real the game resembled a pickup game, right? This is when it looks like from here. So we look at the second quarter stats, what we have here. There should be a lot of guys with a lot of points. We led by 7 points with Steph Curry. He didn't even hit a 3, but he was going to the basket. We're seeing a little bit more of that now where the teams are so intent on taking away the three-point shot that he's just using that to get to the basket, and he was finishing, pretty well. 3 for 7 is decent, but he would probably prefer to be maybe a little bit better than that. And 2 turnovers. Let's see, who else had a lot of points? 6 points by Maurice Spates, had 2 threes that were that's a thing now, that you're going to have to guard Spates, and they're going to probably want to play him at the 5 a little bit so that they really get those open. He can now knock those down. It's a viable shot for him. And then Draymond got in there with a field goal and some free throws, and that for 6 points. Then you had bunched up. You had let's see here, 4 points by Sean Livingston and 4 points by Andre Iguodala. And then Livingston didn't get a chance to finish the quarter because he got ejected on a. I think he merited the ejection. Meanwhile, on the other side, they also the Blazers had a ton of points too. And Al-Farouq Aminu came through, hitting a 4 out of 5 from the field with a 3 in there, 5 rebounds. Really, contributed very well in that quarter. Also 9 points from C.J. McCollum again, 3 for 4 with a 3. Just shot making at a high professional level like you don't see very often. And then Lillard with 7. Didn't even make a field goal, everything from the line, attacking the basket with 4 assists. So he was creating points by any means necessary. 6 points by Allen Crabbe. Again, it's nice to have Henderson and Crabbe out there. These guys are legitimate shooters, and one of those is most likely going to be hot enough to make some shots. And then Ed Davis with 4. So that was the second quarter, and that led us to the halftime. The Portland was still up by, let's see here, 2 and by 10. So they were still in good position at home, up by 10. And let's see what happened here, because in the third quarter, this is a big quarter for them. They held the Warriors held the Blazers to 18, and the Warriors got 29 more points. So who was part of that 29 points? We had Klay Thompson kind of going off 4 for 7, all from 3. So it's one of those things where he just keeps shooting those because he knows eventually they'll start going down. And the way it's been going, that is the case. It's rare that he'll go 4 quarters in a row where he just can't get it going. And the only way he'll reverse his fortunes is if he keeps shooting. 8 points by Draymond Green with 5 more free throws, doing it from the free throw line and drawing fouls, which is key. And then on the other side here we have 3. Let's see. Allen Crabbe had 5 more points, again with a 3, doing nicely. And then you had 4 points from Henderson, Plumlee, and Harkless. Just wasn't enough. 18 points is not enough. 4 turnovers is a bit high for a quarter. And then we move on to the fourth quarter, because in the fourth, you can see Portland outscored them by 1. They were able to tie the game because they ended up being down, believe it or not, after all that big lead they had in the beginning. And who was clear in the fourth quarter? Obviously, Steph Curry was 4 for 7, 2 for 4 from 3, 3 assists. So he had his hand in 16 of the 25 points. And who else scored? 5 points from Maurice Spates. Again, another 5 points, big. And then Draymond Green had 4 points. So, they got some contributions, but it was definitely Steph Curry's game. And then we look here, 12 points from Lillard, who also he detonated again in the fourth quarter when they needed him. Tough shots, insane. No shot selection again. And then in the overtime, we had, normally the home team is heavily favored, but as you can see, the Warriors just kind of exploded again. 21 points in 5 minutes of overtime is crazy. And as we see here, 17 points. Is that right? Wow, I didn't even realize that. 17 points in the overtime. Although what's interesting is it's 5:02. How can you play 5:02 of an overtime? I'm confused by that. Anybody want to explain that one? I don't know. But either way, 17 points in the overtime according to this, and that was about it. And then everyone else filled in, and then 7 points from Lillard, couldn't match him, and they ended up going down. So a crazy game. Again, I'm not sure how the heck I'm supposed to break this thing down because it was a pickup game. It really was. Just taking shots at each other, just spreading it out, running a pick and roll and seeing what happens. I'm not going to say it wasn't enjoyable or exciting. It certainly was entertaining. But I am worried if this is where we're going to as far as the future of basketball, where 5 3-point shooters spread the whole floor, and it's kind of like just drive and kick, hope to get an open shot. I don't know. I kind of miss some of the other choreography that we usually get from a good basketball game. Let's switch my tab and get back to our questions. No, don't forget, we'll wrap this up with our last round of questions. If you have any, you better get them in there now using hashtag BBallShow. And where did we leave off? We left off here with Oh, okay. You know what? There's more information. JJ said, though, asks, at what point as a coach do you sit a player like Lillard or Harden for not playing defense? You know, if it's a recurring thing where, you know, it happens and you're losing your leads, you got to do it, but then you probably get fired. So the NBA is a different animal compared to like college or whatever else, or high school. But, you know, there's no question, you know, if he's really hurting you and it's multiple possessions in, you know, in a short period of time, you got to sit him. Let's see. Cole asks again. Okay, he actually fills in for more information. It was right after a timeout. You would think Portland of all teams would want to hoist up 2 shots, especially at home. Yeah, I mean, unless they were up. But what was the score of that one, Cole? Mayora Pamana asks, excluding Curry, who's your pick for MVP? Wow. How about Draymond Green? Can he be my pick? Because he did so much for them as well. Ferg asks, what did you think of Jeff Van Gundy's comparison of Curry and Lillard? Shoot, was that tonight? I you know, I don't always listen to the commentators, but I'm assuming he favorably compared them. And there's no question there's a very similar mindset to them. Lillard is not as good of a shooter as Curry, but he certainly is as fearless and has an ability to make shots that are in that Curry vein. I don't think he's quite as good of a passer as Curry, even though Curry doesn't get the amount of assists that he would normally get. But certainly, you know, they're of a certain, you know, cloth. They're cut from a similar cloth without question. Lillard might be like tougher and meaner, which is okay. Harry Gannick asks, when a non-shooting big sets a screen, dribble handoff for a great shooter, doesn't it create spacing? Well, let's see. What does that mean? When a non-shooting big sets a screen, I mean, if it's a good screen, yeah. Although in theory they can leave him alone and double the guy who is getting the handoff or the screen, you know, and that's why he would want to kind of roll and get the heck out of the way. So I don't know. It's kind of dependent, I suppose, on the situation. Stu's Up asks, can we expect Warriors to be that dependent on Curry for the rest of their run? You know, it's all for the same reason that it's difficult when a guy like that goes out and the team has a hard time adjusting to that for a little while. Well, then they've gotten adjusted, they're used to it, and then he comes back, right? Now they got to adjust all over again. So I don't think that they need to depend on him like that. They're just going to need to kind of get back in the rhythm of having him back here again, and that will help significantly with him. So Kostas asks, what happened to the great ball moving in Atlanta from last year? Surely one player leaving can't undo such a mindset. Well, I will tell you, and I've been saying this a lot, is that replacing Damari Carroll with Kent Bazemore was a big blow on both ends of the floor. He tends to be out of position both offensively and defensively, and when he creates offense for them, he throws passes that are off target, and it really disrupts the whole offense. And I don't believe that Carroll was doing that at all. So that's a really big difference. Omar Johnson asks, trap game for Golden State on Wednesday. Curry fatigue. Portland has played them tough last 3 games. Tough loss for Lillard, though. You know, it's tough. Yeah, it's probably a trap game because they figure they got what they needed to get. They can always go home. But then again, they also know how important it is to close these things out. So, you know, it's going to be hard. I bet you Portland's probably going to be more crestfallen and emotionally let down than they would, you know, because of the loss, and might have a hard time bouncing back from that. So I would think that Golden State's going to have a good shot at closing it out. Jimmy asks, who do you think played below standard today? Well, I think Clay was a little bit below standard. I can only just check let's check the box score real quick for the whole game, because I'm curious how Clay finished. We'll just share this. Clay finished 7 for 18. Yeah, I didn't shoot that great. He shot well from the 3-point line, but not great everywhere else. So he was one guy who didn't quite play great. You know, Draymond had his usual good self. And then other than that, I mean, for Aminu was terrific. Plumlee did well. I mean, McCollum and Lillard did what they needed to do. So everyone played pretty close to what they needed to do. It's just, you know, when Steph does what Steph does, forget about it. You can't beat that. Let's see here. Thoughts on how Luke Walton will be for the Lakers? I think he'll be great. I think he'll be great for developing the young core. I think he's going to hopefully take a lot of what they did in Golden State and install it there. I know he said something about how this team isn't like suitable for the triangle. Maybe he meant like the pure triangle, but they certainly run a lot of triangle elements, and I have to imagine he's going to use a lot of those with them. He's got a great rhythm and communicational style that I think will really resonate. So I'm really looking forward, Nathan, to seeing him there. Alex asks, hey, you recognize me. I had heard a rumor of the owners not liking him on my local radio, thus the bad bird presser. All right. I mean, you know what? Who knows? Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But we'll find out. And, of course, Alex, you ask questions all the time. Of course, I'll recognize you. Speaking of which reminds me, another guy who used to be on these shows and interact with us all the time on live shows, Ronnie Chang, is going to come on the podcast on Friday. And if you don't know Ronnie, he's a correspondent for The Daily Show. So I'm really excited to have that on Friday. So keep your ears peeled for that. Will Chen asks, what do you think about changing the rules for hack-a-shack techniques? They're effective but make it so boring. Oh, yeah, I turned the game off, and as a result, I missed the Livingston get thrown out because I went to go eat some dinner. It's terrible. It's horrible. It makes the game unwatchable, and they should do something to change it without question. Warner Liao asks, as a coach, how do you contain Curry? What would you do? Also, how underappreciated is Thompson's defense? Thompson's a fantastic defender, and it's probably underappreciated to some degree. As far as Curry goes, I would be physical with him, and I'd also face guard him from 94 feet. I'd have to rotate some players, but I need two good players that could, as soon as the ball gets scored on your end, they're going to face guard him and not let him catch the ball as much as possible, as much as humanly possible. And then I'd also force him away from every screen. And then, I suppose I would also double him and blitz him on pick and rolls if I had to, a little bit, or keep it different, keep it moving around. I think I'd also like maybe a little bit bigger player if I had one that was quick to guard him. Cole Everett, it was tied. So the following possession was Curry's miss. Okay. So they didn't go for 2 for 1 when it was tied. Yeah, that's right. They should have gone when it was tied. So I don't know. That was a mistake. We'll have to really look at it hard when I get the thing. So great catch on that one, Cole. Armando Pena asks, did Livingston unwillingly help the Golden State Warriors by getting ejected and forcing Steph to play extra minutes to get hot? I can't believe that was the case or that really what happened, but because Livingston really helps them anyway, and you never want to be shorthanded. So I think maybe unwittingly was what you were asking. But yeah, there might be something there. The extra minutes finally allowed Curry to really get comfortable. So who knows? Ferg asks, Jeff Van Gundy questioned that if Lillard and Curry switch teams, would there be a real difference? No, I don't think. I think if Lillard played for the Warriors, I don't know if they'd win 73 games, but they'd probably win 60 plus or whatever it is, a lot of games. And if Curry went to Portland, yeah, they would win more games. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yes, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know exactly what would happen, but I think that I suspect that the Warriors with Lillard would still be the Warriors. Ben Lee asks, did losing Sean Livingston in the first quarter benefit the Warriors? It's just the same question as Armando, and I guess in some really bizarre way, but there's no way that ever want to have that happen again and find out. And then Warner says, what do you think of the Heat Raptors series? 3-4 of the games went to overtime. I can't figure out that Heat Raptors series, and we'll wrap up with this because it just feels like the Heat are better. The Heat have been putting together more kind of pretty basketball, and then all of a sudden the Raptors kind of toss in some threes, and they make it all messy again, and they can get right back into games. So I can't quite get a handle on it. And I think that one of the biggest problems they have with the Raptors is DeRozan and how he plays. And all the things I was concerned with about him in the regular season with the shot selection, I kind of felt like when he gets against a good team, those are going to be really problematic shots, and he's proved that is the case. And it just kind of bums me out about watching the rest of the Raptors. And even though I love watching Terrence Ross do well, and Lowry also takes tough shots as well, and he's been struggling. So it's just, I don't know, there's something a little bit more frustrating to watch where I kind of like Dragic in the way he attacks, and he just is different and just seems like better shots to me. It's kind of hard to explain a little bit, but that's sort of how I feel as far as that goes. And so as a result, it just feels to me like the Heat should win that series, but you know what? They might not. They don't have home court advantage. And, who knows what's going to happen with these games and these overtimes and whatever. So it's a really strange series. I can't get my handle on that one. But I certainly can get a handle on the Warriors and the Blazers, and we're now up 3-1 with the Warriors going into Wednesday's game. And we shall see how desperate they can get and whether the pressure will be so great on the Blazers that they can't hit a lot of those shots that they want to hit, which they need to. Crazy shots like I think, and no one really acknowledged my really great tweet when I had Cray me and Lillard, Kray dash me and Lillard. Because he really was that cray with those shots. So lots to do. I was pretty busy today, so hopefully you saw both of our breakdowns I did on both the Cavaliers and by the way, LeBron's incredible passing. And I still don't think he gets enough credit, even though he gets a lot of credit for his passing. Incredible stuff. And then I did one on the OKC Spurs game. So the really crucial, bizarre, having Cantor and Adams on the floor together for the entire fourth quarter, and it worked. And whether Pop's going to be able to figure out a better five-man lineups to go against that and others throughout the games. So definitely check all that stuff out. We'll get the breakdowns done as fast as we can for tomorrow's stuff. And I actually have one about the Spurs I want to get out too ASAP. So stay tuned for that. We also have a really big one coming up on LeBron and whether or not he's getting foul calls for him or not, or is he getting screwed by the refs. I think people will be really interested to see what our conclusion is from that. And podcasts galore. Download our mobile app and listen to it there. And then you'll get all of our articles at the .com. Our editor-in-chief, Jesse Blanchard, is doing an incredible job over there, editing all the terrific contributors and their stuff. You're not going to read better analysis with the written word on the NBA online, except for BBallBreakdown.com. I'm telling you, it's terrific stuff. So head over there, or better yet, use the mobile app to view everything we have across the board. Well, thanks for joining us, sports fans. Can't thank you enough for just being part of the conversation. We had a ton of people here tonight, and I'm looking forward to growing this and keep getting bigger and bigger as we get deeper into the playoffs. And don't forget, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in?